Hello and welcome mourners to the Dirge of Mourning. I am your host today, Andrew A. Graves. Unfortunately, Terry couldn't be here, but she will return. In today's episode, we'll be looking at Bleed This Earth with their 2024 release, The Shapes That Stood in Silence. As I stated at the beginning of the episode, unfortunately Terry couldn't be here due to the mishap that we had recording, but I was able to salvage this particular piece. The story behind this album.
A mother and father die in an accident, leaving behind their little girl. As spirits, they return each night to watch over her as she sleeps, but the girl no longer recognizes them. To her, they appear as dark, ghastly figures that loom over her bed and terrify her beyond measure. Watching their child tremble with fear at the sight of them once again, the parents decide that, as a final act of kindness, they must say their last goodbyes and abandon her forever.
That's one hell of a premise for an album, right?
I love it.
The intro music almost sounds like a sort of doomy lullaby, as if being gently rocked to sleep. This lasts for about 1 minute and 32 seconds. Then we're hit silence. Very eerie, sending shivers up my spine. It's just all, very atmospheric. Then the faint bass lines come in to break up that quiet feeling. Then the haunting vocals come in, full of emotion, and holy shit. Okay, I'm gonna try and break this down. Each word is just beautifully done. There is a sense of hopelessness and dread and fear within the vocalization here. It's haunting, it's emotional, and just kicks my ass. Speaking of kicking, the music comes back in all of its doomy glory, giving us a mood of dread and fear. Again, these types of words are going to pop up a lot here because that's kind of the driving force behind the musical elements, which of course the death growls also hint at. They are very fearful and not too aggressive here. They are trying to portray an emotion of sadness and longing. The slower and quiet parts come back, this time with a little bit more feeling rather than just the atmosphere. We once again get those bass lines, a little bit of that guitar. As the instruments start to slowly build, we also get breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking, clean vocals at this point. I can't praise them enough. Honestly, I am lost for words. I genuinely don't know what the fuck to say here. I don't. I'm sorry, I just fucking don't. They almost brought a fucking tear to my eye. That's how good they were. But with that said, the music does ramp up and we get the death growls back. We then enter the more doomier style of the music, of course. This is funeral doom after all. This brings out the emotions of, again, dread, fear, uncertainty. And that's round about the sort of 8 minute and 22 mark. We have some amazing guitar and bass work. In fact, I'm going to describe it like this. A dirge of dreams. That's what comes to mind. And that lasts for up to about the 10 minute and 18 minute point. We get the full band bringing it all together in this almost nightmarish end as the death growls are in full swing for its agony and sorrow. As each instrument fades, we're left with one last fading death growl. That was just insane. That's only the first song. Oh, I'm in for one hell of a ride here, aren't I? The best way I could describe the intro to the song is a nursery rhyme of doom. Plus, the main guitar part almost mimics the title of the song. If you hum along this melody and say to yourself the title and put those two together, you could almost sing along to it with just the title. It was kind of eerie in that sense, and also fascinating, at least for me. Of course, the eerie factor for this album continues to be hammered on. The death growls shock you back into the painful reality of the story, and that's just at the 2 minute and 25 mark. The true doom and gloom comes into play with the classical notes of Bleed This Earth, as we've all come to recognise at this point, painting that doom-laden landscape of suffering and loss. And if I have forgotten to mention at this point, the death growls are just absolutely perfect right now. They are just amazing, lending those deep, painful and grief-stricken sounds to the lyrics, which we'll get into shortly. Though, with that being said, I can only attribute the style of vocals here to be a genuine sense of loss and pain, sorrow, all that sort of melancholy attributes. Then we get to the part where everything sort of quietens down, we get a nice bass line with some guitar, just before the drums are added in to add a more dynamic element here at the 4-minute and 51-second point. The clean vocals come in with awesome sound effect. I absolutely love it every time they use this particular style of effect. Oh, it just gets me so in the mood to follow what is being said, adds a great atmosphere, overall sense of urgency in the clean vocals here, just adding to the overall experience. The more doomier style riffs come back. We slow down again at the 7-minute and 5-second point. I guess the way I'm going to describe this particular part is ghostly. It's not only just ghostly, but it drips with melancholy as well. As the music builds up, showcasing the drum work here as well, just absolutely phenomenal. There is also a small lightheartedness in the way that these particular pieces are being played as the song comes to the end here. It's sort of, how am I going to put this? Peaceful. I think that's the feeling I'm getting here. Is it's very peaceful at this point. There's a sense of, okay, we've achieved something. Dread. That is what the instrumentation here is going for. And gonna have to say, yeah, pretty dreadful. But in that proper funeral doom way. As the music ramps up a bit, that feeling of dread, fear, that spine-tingling emotion, the uneasiness of it all comes to a head with the death growls, adding in a slow, methodical, dire mood. This overwhelming feeling of sorrow and grief is just, absolutely has me on the edge of my seat. I'm anticipating the next metal riff, which, by the way, this showcases a whole fuck ton of why it's not just called funeral doom, but also has that little bit at the end, metal. This is metal as fuck. And I'm not gonna lie, not disappointed at all. The melody is on point, with me personally feeling at this moment just kinda slowly headbanging away to it. Absolutely amazing work here, guys. It honestly is. At the 4-minute and 40-second mark, the music slows down, the drums are a bit more pronounced at this point, but then the guitar builds up. The death growls slowly express a sense of loss and grief and longing. Again, these words are going to keep cropping up because, again, that's the overall theme here. So as we get deeper into those emotional vocal expressions, I can't help but say that I haven't witnessed something like this in quite a while, and I'm loving every minute of it. Absolutely phenomenal work. It honestly is. At the 5-minute and 42 mark, the death growls fade, and we get some clean singing, and then back to the death growls, some clean singing, death growls, clean singing. This sort of old school dynamic of making heavy metal. Like I said, this is a very heavy metal influenced track. Nothing wrong with it. The softer parts do come back, and then we get back into the more heavier elements of Funeral Doom. And honestly, cannot get enough of this. Can I have more? Can I have more, please? I'd like more. You know, we're almost at the end of the album here in terms of music, and I could listen for another 20 minutes. Don't know about anybody else. I could. Yeah, we all in agreement here? Great. The sad part of all of this, of course, is I'm just talking to myself. But no, just an absolute modern funeral doom classic right here. Just jaw-dropping. Gentle guitars start us off here, but I can't help but feel a certain uneasiness, a sort of spine-tingling fear. This emotion is, I would say, amplified by the clean singing. And again, I don't know what the fuck to say. The gentle sounds of a lullaby on a guitar. It's haunting, it's dreamlike, just phenomenal work here again. I'm gonna run out of words to describe just how, like, mesmerizing this album is in terms of its craftsmanship. Then the doom truly kicks in as we get softer melancholy tones, creating an atmosphere of just sadness. Period. Just sadness. The realization of everything. This is... fuck. It's just... oh, holy shit, amazing. Every word here that is spoken is on another level. It is. We come to darker elements that give us the ups and downs, the use of death growl, underlining the sense of misery, pain, loss, and understanding. We've now come to the moment of understanding in terms of music. We then come to the point of the song where I'm simply just going to say this. It's almost like the death growls are digging a grave of forgiveness for themselves within the context of the music, of course. The final death growl dissipates as the drums end this track. This is the band's third album, and it is a true modern funeral doom classic. And I'm not saying that lightly. The album hasn't even been out a full year, and already it's on my top lists of go-to albums of 2024. I cannot get enough of this album. Absolutely outstanding. Not one note is wasted. Every single minute of every single note has a purpose. Even the small weird quiet parts, they all lend to create an atmosphere that is just pure art. It blows my mind how these guys are able to consistently create amazing work. Normally Terry would be here to help break down the lyrics and like their overall meaning and stuff, but today you're just going to get me giving you the bare bones of what I believe each song is about in terms of the storyline. Without any further ado, this is Olivia. The overall plot thread, if you like, is there are two spirits, shapes, shadows, spectres, whatever you wish to call them, manifesting themselves at the end of a little girl's bed. These beings, as they try everything they can do to communicate with Olivia, they realise she is so petrified, the fear has gripped her so deeply that her own loving parents have inadvertently hurt her. They come to this realisation almost immediately when they, look upon their child. And I would have to say that the moment of that realisation comes in to play from my favourite part of the lyrics. It breaks my heart to leave you, to fuel your deepest fears, to know that you'd be better on your own. Do I need to say any more? Well, I will. It's that realisation when you realise that you love someone so much that you end up hurting them just by trying to be with them. They are in a sense of shock and awe, the fear, the pain, the grief that is here. It is so overwhelming that I genuinely feel sorry for the little girl. I really do. Like, Olivia must be going out of her fucking mind. She must be going insane, wondering like, what the hell is this shit? Fuck, why am I seeing this? What did she do to deserve any of this? She just lost her parents and now these things are coming after her, basically. At least that's how she's seeing it. Here's these monsters trying to grab and caress her and all this other weird shit. She must be, again, going out of her goddamn mind. But I'm gonna have to put it like this. The lyrical simplicity of telling this story was genius. Absolutely genius. Straight to the point, no bullshit needed. And I absolutely love it for that. I'm letting go of you forever. This is actually quite a straightforward, simple one to get across. This is, again, the realization point that the mother and father have realized they have caused their child so much trauma, so much fear, pain, all of the emotions attached to that element. And to generally clarify how that is like coming across in terms of the lyrics, I'm going to read you my favourite little line here. Filled with regret, we had to leave. Broken, we wept, caressing you. That gets across the whole dynamic of they didn't want to cause any harm, but now they're realising, oh, we did more harm than good. We've damaged Olivia here beyond all recognisable norms, I guess. And it's just such a heartbreaking thing to think about. Imagine losing someone and they come back and you're terrified of them. Now that they're some form of monster. At least that's what we're imagining these characters to look like. Again, it's traumatic for a child to think of these things. Or even to experience this. It is just depressingly good storytelling. I don't know what else to say. As my terror turns to sleep. This is terrifying. This is the idea that you are so wrapped up in fear that your body just shuts down due to emotional distress. Olivia here is basically explaining how she basically just scared herself into sleeping, hoping that these monsters with evil hearts, as it's described here in the lyrics, just go away. In fact, I'm going to read you the small part of the lyrics to really get across this idea of how strange this is for her. Familiar smell of roses, they try to speak, and then their cold arms wrap around my neck, lay me down to sleep, and ceremoniously left. That gives me fucking chills. Oh shit. This must be... I don't think traumatic is a good enough descriptive word here. On a level of, yeah, no, fuck this. Or a better turn of phrase here is, yeah, nah, fuck that. Nah. Yeah, nah, yeah, nah, fuck this. Nah. You're that scared that your body just shuts down and you sleep. I don't think I've ever personally felt that or experienced that. I don't know what that would do psychologically to someone. I genuinely don't. That's a head trip and a half. We've got this idea of these haunting beasts with evil hearts, sharp nails and grinding teeth, and yet it's a familiar feeling. We almost know what it is, but we're too afraid to accept what it is. The lyrics may be written in a simplistic manner, but the meaning is far more complex and far more almost a dynamic storytelling device that has a lot of, again, complex thoughts and feelings and very complex yet simplistic. I'm sitting here going, my head hurts just thinking about all of the implications here that is going on in this little girl's mind, and I'm starting to wonder, am I going to end up like this tonight? Oh fuck. Oh, you've written some amazing stuff here. Don't ever stop it. Don't stop writing this awesome shit. And moments flicker by. Again, we're come back to that phrasing of realization. The parents realize, yet again, they may have conquered death. They may have somehow managed to come back in some way, shape or form. Though, from the description, of course, this terrifying alternative version of themselves. But now they understand that this was not supposed to go this way. This was never meant to be. You were never meant to do any of this. Which is why I think this realization isn't just the parents. It's also Olivia's. She's also coming to the realization that maybe, just maybe, this was a fluke. This was the last time to do anything with the memory of her parents. And the reason I say that is because throughout the lyrics, we have had these descriptions of these twisted, mangled forms that are coming after her. I get the feeling that this is her last memory of what her parents looked like when they died. Now, whether that be at the funeral itself or however she discovered her parents in this horrific accident, at the same time, like I mentioned, there's this sense of she also realizes this, but the parents do as well. And I want to get across this idea by simply reading this. We will laugh as the sun hits our lonely hearts, tears of joy, soaked in bliss. Somber days are gone, just a dream. You and I, forevermore. Going back to this idea of, is it real? Is it not? Was this how she, like, is she having a night terror, basically? I guess that's the best way I could describe this. Is this just a night terror? Is she dreaming all of this? Has she woken up from a terrifying dream and believes that these things are real? Because I'm going to assume that the child here is about the ages between 6 to 10. Because then it becomes a bit more easier to identify with what is going on here. Because at those ages, we've all had nightmares and, terrifying dreams that have woke us up and we still believe it's there. They all come to realize that this whole experience was a one-off. The parents describe this element of, we're here, we now have to go, we've explained why we're going, and this is it, we're done. We can no longer hold on to this. We have to move on for our own sake, and we hope that Olivia moves on past this traumatic experience as well. Album art. What can I say about the album art here? Absolutely on point. We have, again, this almost cold colouring, lots of greys, shades of blues, whites, blacks. They did an absolute phenomenal job here. It captures everything that I've just experienced with this album. Couldn't have asked for a better album cover. With that said, I just received a message from Terry. I asked her just a quick question about the album art, and I asked her if she would agree with giving it a score of 10 out of 10, and she wholeheartedly agreed. She expressed the fact that this album art was just out of this world. She enjoyed looking at it and relating it to the story, the music itself. She thinks that this album art fits it so perfectly that we both agree it's a 10 out of 10. Album scoring. After saying everything that I've said, praising it as much as I have praised this album, and yes, with all that said, 10 out of 10. It's a 10 out of 10 album. I don't know what else to say about it. It's a 10, it gets a 10, and funnily enough, I receive another message from Terry. Don't forget to give this album a 10 out of 10. I wish I could be here to fully express my love for this album, but please let all the listeners know that this is an absolute phenomenal album. And with that said, guys, links are in the description as always. Go and get this album. Absolutely amazing. 10 out of 10. these are my final thoughts. Essentially, before I read what the story was or what the album was about, I had this really dumb idea of this album tying into something that I'm not sure a lot know about. A band called Enter the Soil. Now, way back many months ago, we did a song from there, and it had a very similar vibe of a child who had died, etc. And I thought maybe this was a continuation of that story. I feel like a dumbass. No, of course not. Because when it was brought to my attention, I was like, oh, okay, so that's what this story is. That's what we're doing here. It totally turned my idea of what this album was going to be about right out the window, so I had to rewrite everything. Which happens more often than not, by the way. But with all that said, again, I cannot praise this album enough. It is a truly heartbreaking story. These talented musicians are at the top of modern funeral doom. I will constantly go back and check out this album for years to come. That's why I'm calling it a classic. I don't care from the next 10 to 20 to 40 years, I don't care how long it is going to take. I will always visit this album once a year. It is that damn good. With that said, phenomenal work from Bleed This Earth, great storytelling. You know what? I'm going to go back and listen to this album again. On behalf of my co-host, Terry, I would like everyone to know that she will return in the next episode, and I would also like to express the fact that she enjoyed this album, and that I tried my best to express some of her views within this episode. Until next time, mourners, remember, every day is a funeral.